Two Chairs No Waiting, episode number 684, Giving Things Another Thought. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you by donations from listeners exactly like you. The executive producer of episode number 684 is Mike McGonigal, and the High Sheriff of Two Chairs No Waiting for episode number 684 is Chris Smerrill. So thank you, Chris, and thank you, Mike, for being supportive of the podcast. I'm Alan Houston, the host of Two Chairs No Waiting, and your music is brought to you by the Mayberry Band. Thank you, band. Oh, my goodness. It is always great to spend a little bit of time in Mayberry with you. I always enjoy getting to spend some time and just talk about Andy Griffith Show. Now, this episode, we're going to be revisiting a few thoughts because some things came up in the last week or so about episodes that were previous. So we're going to go back and talk about some of those episodes as we, to remind ourselves of what was going on. And plus we had folks that called in or wrote in or something. So I want to take some time to address those things. And so the first one I want to do goes back to the episode number, I think it was 682 when we were talking about, it was called Hearing from You. Do you remember that one? Yeah, that was the name of the episode, Hearing from You. And I'm going to play this voicemail again, because when I answered it, I kind of answered it incorrectly. And Randy Turner was good enough to help me with the answer. So let me play this for you. This is from Tim. And again, you heard this same voicemail back on 682, but we're going to give things another thought here. So let's hear from Tim first.
Hey, Alan, this is Tim Jansen. Hello from beautiful Davenport, Iowa. Got a question. I know that some of the outside shots of Andy Griffith's house, or Andy Taylor's house, I should say, has two windows on the second floor, but sometimes they're together, sometimes they're apart. And why would they spend all that money just to change the facade of the house? Just leave it alone. So I know there was that one episode where Andy and Gomer, when Gomer was spending the night there because he lost his job at Wally's, they were separated when they had that shot of them talking to each other because they woke up all the neighbors. So just wanted to get a little information on that. If you or the listeners may have some information on that, and I'll look forward to your answer. Thank you very much. God bless. All
right, Tim. So thank you again for taking time to call in and leave that question. Now, last time I answered that, I said, well, the inside of the studio might have been different than the outside of the studio. So I got a Facebook message actually from Randy Turner. Now he has a book, and you can get it over to Weavers. If you want to head over to Weaver's Department Store, you can pick up Mayberry Firsts. That's Randy's book. You can pick that up over there, and at WeaversDepartmentStore.com, which, the show's sponsored by them. Thank you for going over there and buying stuff. But as part of that, he told me that he had written some stuff about that. So on page 178, I'm going to give you some of the answer. I'm going to read a little bit of this. He says, going on page 178, he said, a view of the entire facade of the Taylor home was not seen until the final episode of the first season, in the episode Bringing Up Opie. It originally aired on May 22nd, 1961. Opie was sent outside to plant 2 rows of spinach by Aunt B. You remember that? And Aunt B said it would be educational for him to eventually see the plants growing right there before his very eyes. And Opie argued in vain, but spinach, couldn't I grow something else, see something else grow up before my very eyes? So later, when Opie was watering the spinach, the entire facade, the outside of the house, including the garage to the right of the house, was finally seen. So that's the first time we ever saw the house. So remember, Randy's book is called Mayberry Firsts. So that's what it's all about. So pick up a copy. It's a great book. A lot of great details in here. The garage door was made of vertical boards and not aligned boards, as has been shown in the series' first episode, The New Housekeeper. So it was probably a different building. So during that time frame, the house, the courthouse, or the house, it had one window. It had 2 windows, but they were adjacent to each other up at the top front of Andy's house, right above the porch. Okay. So they were adjacent to each other. And so Randy goes on to say the exterior of the house underwent underwent one major change. During the first 3 seasons, the second floor had only one single set of windows facing the street. So there were 2 windows, and they were right together, right in the middle. If you were looking at the eave of the house where it comes to a point, there were 2 windows centered right under that. So that's the way it was then. Beginning the next season, so this is the 4th season, right? So for the first 3 seasons, the second floor only had one set of windows facing the street. Beginning the next season, which was the 4th season, the facade now had 2 separate windows. So that was in the 4th season. So in Randy's book, he's even got a good picture of it. You'll be able to see where he's talking about the Taylor house's facade changed and had 2 separate windows there at the top. So I gave bad information last time. So I wanted to go back and talk about that. Now, what's probably interesting about that, because Tim had mentioned, why would they do that? Why would they go in and change the facade? So you have to remember that entire back lot area was used for things other than the Andy Griffith Show. So it would be interesting if we could figure out what movie or television series or something that they used that house in and wanted to change, remodel the way the house looked from the outside because of whatever series or movies they were doing it in. If you look at the actual picture in the book, if you get a chance to do that, or if you just watch the episodes, remember when Gomer was the house guest and he was looking out the window? That's where the picture came from in the 4th season. You'll be able to see that the front of the house, rather than being lap board siding or board side, it looks more like shingles, like cedar shingles almost looking down through there, or maybe even roofing shingles. So it looks like that rather than the original look, which was wooden. So if you go and look at it, you'll be able to see that it looks more lap board or something in the original 3 seasons, but then it turns into that other boarding down at the bottom. So things changed. Something happened and they changed it. So Randy Turner, once again, who you'll be hearing from in just a little bit, talking about Hal Smith. Great book, Mayberry Firsts. Head over to Weaver's Department Store and check it out. All right. So thank you, Tim, and thank you, Randy, for that great information. Thanks for correcting my bad information of saying that, well, maybe the inside of the studio set was different than the exterior set over at 40 Acres. That was not the reason for this change. All right. So now we got some more information coming from questions or responses to the episode that I did about does knowing more changed how I watch. Do you remember that I talked about that? That was episode number 680 of the podcast. Does knowing more change how I watch the Andy Griffith Show? So I'd asked that question and we got a few responses. And the first one I'm going to go into is from Lyle Fels. It's he goes by the mayor. He's a town, what is he? Mayberry Town Council, I think is his chapter's name. And here's what he goes in and says to us. He says, since I was a little kid, I thought about camera angles and how they might have shot it, how they might have shot those shots. When I became an actor, I developed a much more intrigued view of the technical end of how these scenes are shot. Watching the Andy Griffith Show years ago, I realized that all the walls of the courthouse could be moved out to make room for the camera and the lights and the sound person. My wife sometimes asks as I lean over in a movie and say, what a shot. She says, can't you just watch and enjoy the movie or the story? He said, and Lyle says, I do enjoy it, but in a different way. I also love watching inconsistencies in continuity, the little logistical things that the Andy Griffith Show didn't think of or missed. Like the episode with Cousin Virgil. You know, they go out looking for him. Remember, he didn't get off the bus. Remember that? He didn't get off the bus to coming into Mayberry. And so they went off looking for Cousin Virgil. And when they find him, you know, one must assume that they are coming from Mayberry as they find him. But when they come upon him, he's walking away from Mayberry, walking the wrong direction. He should have been walking toward the car if he was walking toward Mayberry. That's a good catch. And it may have been an error, or it could be that that's just cousin Virgil. He doesn't even know where the town is, so he's walking the wrong direction. Maybe that's what that meant. I'm saying that. Lyle didn't. He said that was a continuity problem. Why was he walking away from town? I think it could be because, it's cousin Virgil. He can't even figure out which way the town is. He could have just followed the bus. Anyway, Lyle goes on to say, it always cracks me up about the houses on Taylor Street. I mean, what are there? Three houses or something? When they are getting in the car to go home from church in the Man in a Hurry episode. Y'all remember that? That's right after Opie had been picking on his coat sleeves and pulling out the horse hairs, and he's going to make his suit all soft. But Johnny Pollard said if you put it in stagnation water, it turn into a snake. Remember that? Well, he said, it always cracks me up that they're getting in the car to go home from church in A Man in a Hurry on that episode. And over their shoulder is the Taylor home. You can clearly see it. It's right there. It's like 2 or 3 houses up the road. And why couldn't they have just walked to church? Why did they drive? It wasn't like it was raining or anything. So it'd have been pretty easy to just walk to church that morning, it seems to me. But they didn't. So that's what Lyle's talking and laughing about in this particular case. And also sometimes the sets might be right next to each other. And he's talking about, in this case, in the sound stage. So in the sound stage, the sets, if you think about it, could have been right next to each other. Like, the courthouse wall may have been connected to the Taylor home wall, and the bank. And on the other side of the interior, some random home that became Thelma Lou's or Helen Crump's or Nurse Mary's, maybe Miss Wiley's, or even Quiet Sam's house. And with other slight modifications, they could make them look like whatever. So it's always interesting to him, because he was talking about, he's seen the set for I Love Lucy and what it looked like. And the set of I Love Lucy, the center is the main living space, and to the right is the kitchen, and to the right of that is the Copacabana where Ricky's nightclub was. And even to the left of the living space is the bedroom. And then beyond that's little Ricky's nursery. So as an example, that's what he's saying, that the Andy Griffith Show could have been arranged like that in the soundstage as well. But it doesn't look like it, does it? It looks like a real town. So it's really cool. He said, I always watch the shows, at least for the first 2 seasons, knowing that if it's an exterior shot, we know it was on a Monday, because that's when they film the exterior shots. So we know that the shots where he looks down at the twins, and the final shot and the final shot in A Stranger in Town, both of those were shot before anything that happened inside a building. If you realize that, we know it. Or the shots around the oak tree and the tour of the town of Mayberry and Mayberry Goes Hollywood, those were all shot before the things that happened in the buildings or interior stuff. The first time I was on a movie set, I was fascinated by the lighting, as I made my first entrance into the standing right next to the Tower of Lights. And I thought certainly that they'd be seen on camera, but no, they weren't. That's why I know where the soundstage versions of the front of the house and the front of the courthouse, what they would look like and how that must have been. You can sometimes tell by the shadow on the walls at different times that it's not natural light, that it's some kind of lighting. And it's no wonder, Lyle says, that Ron Howard became fascinated by it all. And isn't that true? But after saying all that and knowing all that kind of stuff, it doesn't diminish the show for me. It makes me admire it all the more, Lyle says. Lots of luck to you and yours, the mayor. So thank you, Lyle, for taking time to write in. And you are right. That's the way I feel too. It does change the way you watch it at times, but at other times it doesn't. I'm able to easily go between watching it to pick up on something or watching it just to enjoy Mayberry. For me, that's how it works. I hope that's the way it works for you too, because this podcast is ruining the whole show for you if it doesn't, because I talk about this stuff all the time. So we got one more email about that same topic about, does knowing more change the way you watch? And it's from Chris. And Chris says, I just listened to the episode number 680, and I have some experiences in community theater. Having played several different parts, including 10 different parts in a play called Greater Tuna. And yes, some of those were women. Because of this experience, I tend to watch TV and most live action shows and movies a little differently. I love the behind the scenes trivia and dissecting the scenes in my mind. This doesn't inhibit my ability to just enjoy the show. I'm always amazed by Ron Howard's ability to act at such a young age. In season 1, we had Opie as a cute little boy with witty little one-liners, but he overcame that as the show continued. My favorite Opie moments are in Opie the Birdman and Opie's Job. Ron Howard used method acting. Now, if you don't know what that means, because I didn't, I looked it up, but he says Ron Howard used method acting when he killed the birds with the slingshot. So method acting is also just known as method. It's a technique revered as infamous nowadays. Some people don't like it. It's a system that some actors use when approaching a role to try to become their character and inhabit their psyche. So I guess when I'm doing Floyd the Barber, I'm a method actor. What do you know? All right. I'm a method actor. Ha. I learned something. All right. So that's what Ron Howard was doing, because when he did that, he remembered an incident and knew how Opie would feel, and then therefore was able to make that come out on the screen. And that's what he said. It's amazing that a kid that young would be able to create a moment in a scene where he was really feeling the sorrow of someone who had just witnessed the death of an animal. As I recall, he was asked about making that scene and how he was able to cry on cue. And he told that he had a puppy once that had died. Actually, it got hit by a car, and just thought about that. His dad came out there and mentioned it to him and said, remember what this feels like. And that's how he came up. Then when Opie explains to his pa about why he got fired from the grocery store job, remember that one in the Opie's Job? Because they have bills. Because his dad, they have bills. Whoa, that was a great episode. Because the other boy was working to help his family. And man, that brings a tear to my eye every time I watch it. And Ron Howard was amazing in those scenes. But it was so honest, wasn't it? That Opie really felt for that young man, the boy, that's what made it so real. I'm always amazed at how the scenes are constructed. Now that we have HD television, it's fun to see the painted backdrops and different sets. And I really appreciate your work on the podcast. Thank you for that, Chris. And I've enjoyed the Mayberry Meetup for several years now. So keep it going. So we'll keep the Mayberry Meetup alive and well as long as possible. So thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. So anyway, that was his thoughts. I don't know what your thoughts were. I haven't heard from a lot of people, but I did hear from these two about that particular topic. And that's the way I feel too. I enjoy watching the show, and I can definitely turn off the analytical part and just enjoy watching what Barney's about to do, or just appreciate the emotion that Opie has in those scenes he's talking about, both in Opie the Birdman and Opie's Job. And just to watch, it's so real. It's not acting. It's like a real little boy getting upset, or a real young man getting upset about something. It's just an amazing thing to see. So I got a couple of other things before we move on and play a little bit of trivia and then go hear from Randy Turner. The Mayberry Man folks, the folks that made the Mayberry Man movie. Hopefully you do know about that and know about Mayberry Man. Well, I wanted to let you guys know that there's some plans here that are supposed to start this week on Wednesday evening. They're going to start doing a live weekly update. starting this Wednesday. So watch for details on their Facebook page. You can go to facebook.com/Mayberry Man Movie, and there'll be some details about some stuff that may be coming up in the world of Mayberry Man. If you enjoyed the Mayberry Man movie, this is going to be fun for you. They're going to try to have some of the folks that were in the movie possibly, and hopefully, I might be on there soon, like Wednesday. So if things work out and I'm able to do it, I'll be there Wednesday night with Court. I hope that's going to work out. Got one little conflict or possible one that I'm checking on. So guys, be looking for that. It's only going to be a YouTube video or a streaming video. It may not be YouTube. It'll be on Facebook, maybe on YouTube. I'm not sure where else it'll be. Let me see if he's told me that. I didn't see. Yep, it'll be on their YouTube channel as well. So you can go and check it out at their YouTube channel. I'll put links in our show notes for that. So if you'd like to be a part of that and just see what's going on around the Mayberry Man community, we got some fun stuff coming up. The 25th, I believe. I'm looking real quick here. June. Yes, 25th of June. They're going to have the Mayberry Man down at the Alabama Theater in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So that's one big thing that's coming up in just a few weeks. So I hope you'll be able to maybe come to that and check us out and visit us there too. But all that information is going to show up in this weekly video that they're going to be doing, a video stream podcast basically, but it's just going to be video. So just something to keep in mind. And that's what I have for you as far as that goes. I think I covered everything. Let me look. Boy, there's just so much I can't keep up with everything I'm doing. Oh, there's another thing. If you're interested, I was on a podcast episode of the podcast is called The Loaded Goat. And I was on an episode of it a few weeks ago. They did one about Floyd, the Gay Deceiver, that episode, and I was the guest that week. So you can go to loadedgoat.net and look for that episode, and that'll have me in it. I'll have a link in our show notes where you can go straight to the episode as well. So, all right. So let's go now and play a little bit of Mayberry Trivia. If you guys are ready for that, let me get some music going. There we go. A little background music from the VW Boys at VWBoys.com. Tim White, thanks for letting us use the music, and get your pencils and paper ready. So here comes some Mayberry Trivia. We got a few questions to run through. All right. Question 1. Opie accidentally destroyed Aunt Bee's prize rose with a baseball. True or false? Opie accidentally destroyed Aunt Bee's prize rose with a baseball. True or false? What's your answer? All right, last time, and then I'll give you the answer. Opie accidentally destroyed Aunt Bee's prize rose with a baseball. The answer is that's true. Yeah, they were throwing a baseball around. It could have been a football, but it was a baseball. All right, question number 2. Who regularly read True Blue Detective magazine? Who regularly, who very often read True Blue Detective magazine? Who was it? Who regularly read True Blue Detective magazine? The answer, the chat room's getting it, is Barney. Good old Bernie. Oh, Bernie. All right, here we go. Number 3, what was the name of Aunt Bee's prize rose, which was accidentally destroyed by Opie's baseball? We already know that part. What was the name of the prize rose that Aunt Bee grew, which was accidentally destroyed? This one's a little harder. So they're saying it was a football. See, I thought it was a football too. So the first answer was false. Everybody in the chat room saying it was a football. I thought it was a football, but I didn't know. So the football is the answer from question 1. So we're changing it. So the answer should have been false. It was a football. See, I thought it was a football. I'm just reading. I just read the questions and the answers. I didn't look it up, but I thought it was. Okay, so they're saying it was a football. I think I agree with them. All right, so what was the name of the rose that was destroyed by the football? Okay, so everybody's saying it was a football in the chat room, so I'm going football. So the name of it was Deep Pink Ecstasy. And folks in the chat room are getting that as well. Good job. Jim Sherrill said football too, right? So everybody's saying football. So the answer's wrong if you have this game. All right, question number 4. The game is the Andy Griffith Show trivia game, basically. All right, what was Irene Flogg's stage name? Question number 4. What was Irene Flogg's stage name? Irene Flogg's stage name. And by the way, Billy was the one playing football with Opie when the football broke the rose. So Jim Sherrill just popped that in too. All right. What was Irene Flogg's stage name? All right. So I'm not seeing a lot of answers come flying through the chat room on that yet. I'm going to give you a multiple choice on this one. So was it Chris Duke, Valerie Duke, Amy Wilson, or Tina Andrews? What was Irene Flogg's stage name? Chris Duke, Valerie Duke, Amy Wilson, or Tina Andrews? And the answer is Tina Andrews. That's right. Tina Andrews was the name of Irene Flogg. All right. So that was number 4. Number 5. Gomer thought Goober was ugly. True or false? Gomer thought Goober was ugly. True or false? Gomer thought Goober was ugly. True or false? The answer is that's true. He thought he was ugly. All right. So number 6, what did Gomer say was ugly, but he ain't stupid? This is who did Gomer say was ugly, but he ain't stupid? You should be able to get this one. You should be able to get this one. Who did Gomer say was ugly, but he ain't stupid? He's ugly, but he ain't stupid. So this is pretty easy. If you got the last question or listened to it, you would have been able to answer this question. The answer is Goober. Goober's ugly, but he ain't stupid. Okay. All right. What are we on? 7. According to Barney, what was the definition of ESP? What did that mean? ESP. According to Barney, what did ESP mean? What did it mean? What was the definition of ESP according to Barney? According to Barney, what did ESP mean? All right. You're going to have to pause if you don't want to know the answer yet. But the answer is he thought ESP stood for extra sensitive perception. Extra sensitive perception. That's what he thought it meant. Okay. He thought it meant extra sensitive perception. All right. And number 8, this is our last one. When Barney caught the bookie barber, he wanted to, what? When Barney caught the bookie barber, he wanted to A, play poker, B, shoot craps, C, bet on a horse, or D, bet on a football game. All right. Extra sensitive perception. All right. So what did Barney want to do when he was trying to catch the bookie barber? He went in, he was trying to play poker, shoot craps, bet on a horse, or bet on a football game. What was Barney doing? The answer is Barney was wanting to put, I can't remember how much was it $1 right on the horsey's nose. So he was on the bet on a horse. All right, guys. So how did you do? How'd you do with your questions? You got true or false on that first one. So we changed that to football as being the answer. We got that. I already talked about this. All right. So Jan's giving me notes. I'm getting notes from Jan Snurdley. Yeah. All right. So there's our questions. Hope you guys get a good job on those questions. Let me turn this music down. All right. So we talked about the movie coming up on June 25th in Tuscaloosa, but on June 4th, we're also going to be having Mule Day in Gordo, Alabama. We are there almost not every year, but a lot. Floyd and some of the Mayberry folks will be there. Ann Delano will be there, and Festus. So come on down. Festus will be there. It's worth coming just to see Festus. He's awesome. So come on down and see all of us at Mule Day in Gordo on June 4th. All right. So now we're going to go and hear from Randy Turner with This Week in Mayberry History. I think we are. We're not, because I evidently didn't load the video. Hold on. You know what's funny about that? I was actually laughing about that before the show started, that I forgot to do it last week. Here we go. Let's try it again. We'll get this going. For Randy Turner with This Week in Mayberry History, if I can get this video to load. See, now I'm going to have to edit or just admit I'm really bad at this. That's another way I could do it, because it's not. There's Randy.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
This week, we continue our look at some often overlooked and misunderstood aspects of Hal Smith's life and career. As we discussed last week, the man who would be best known as Mayberry's Otis Campbell began his career being best known as a singer. Before he had even turned 18, Hal had already made quite the name for himself in the Messina, New York area, where his family finally settled when he was 11. But how did his career evolve to leave professional singing behind and become best known as an actor? While he was only 16 or 17, Hal began performing with the local Johnny Morrison and his Crazy Cats, those last two words being spelled with K's. Hal had always been an actor as well as being a good singer, but his work with the band included billing as both a singer and impersonator. After high school graduation, Hal's father wanted him to attend Clarkson University, just half an hour south of Messina. But Hal instead moved to Utica, New York, to pursue more opportunities in entertainment. He still sang, but he also began working extensively as a comedian, which did include some of the impersonations in Messina. Before he reached the age of 21, he had formed a band called Hal Smith and his Swingsters, with which he did sing, but also acted as the master of ceremonies with heavy doses of comedy. Hal won a contest sponsored by radio station WIBX in Utica, doing impersonations and humorous voices created out of thin air, a skill that would later make him wealthy in his cartoon voice work. The station hired him as a DJ and also gave him his own shows. His popularity on the radio fueled his in-person appearances, and during this time, his humor and imitations were every bit as popular as his singing. By the end of that year at the station, he was being billed as radio's man of 1,000 voices. Hal left WBIX in January 1938 and worked for several stations in the Buffalo area, but returned a few months later. A station secretary named Vivian Engstadt may have had something to do with that. They got married that August. By the middle of the following year, Hal had become the program director at WBIX. For the next several years, Hal's public career as both a comedian and singer continued to flourish, but in 1943, that all came to a halt when he enlisted. But it continued in a different fashion as Hal's talents were put to use entertaining fellow troops in the Army Air Force Special Services. Serving in the forerunner of the U.S. Air Force was especially apt, as Hal had become an avid pilot before he ever enlisted. After the war, Hal's singing career took more and more of a backseat to his comedic skills. In April 1946, he moved to California and was quickly cast as the lead comic character in the low-budget B-movie Stars Over Texas. After divorcing, Hal married Louise Curtis in 1948. As he was trying to establish an acting career in TV and film, he supported himself by first working as a radio announcer for KIEV. When he moved to being the lead announcer for a high-powered Class A station that used only 3 call letters, KFI, his radio work opened up additional opportunities to him, including hosting a weekly nationwide radio sports show. That national exposure no doubt helped him with his acting aspirations, and by 1950, he made his first national TV appearance in the series The Ruggles, co-starring Margaret Carey, who would later appear in Mayberry in a couple of first-season episodes. From that point on, Hal's career had clearly shifted from his early local fame as a singer to a nonstop career of acting. In 1950, he also appeared in the Jimmy Durante and Donald O'Connor movie The Milkman, a role he filmed before he was on The Ruggles, but which was released afterward. After appearing in other movies, such as Ma and Pa Kettle at the Fair and other TV series, he was cast as a recurring character for the first time, playing Charlie Harrison in 11 episodes of the series I Married Joan. And as a foreshadowing aside, Hal played a drunken character for the first time in an episode of Ozzie and Harriet. And so his career went, acting extensively and no longer performing regularly as a singer. Spirit Walker will be back next week. Then we'll return to look at an often misunderstood aspect of Hal Smith's life. Thanks for listening, and remember to take care of yourself, take care of others, and take Andy's advice, and go out there and act like somebody.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you for that report. Always amazing. If you want to make sure you don't miss out on what Randy's doing online in the Mayberry community, head over to turnersgrade@gmail.com, turnersgrade@gmail.com, and he'll make sure you're not missing out on anything. So thanks again, Randy. I really appreciate that. It's always fun. It's fun to hear from Randy. It's good to have Spirit Walker. It's nice to have these extra voices coming here on the podcast just to bring more Mayberry fun. Plus, I get to listen to these and enjoy them. So, folks, it is always fun to be here in Mayberry with you. I hope you had a good time. I'm probably not going to edit that mistake out because you need to see what the behind-the-scenes stuff looks like. That's what we were just talking about the whole episode. So that's why I did it. It wasn't a mistake. It was just, to show you what really happens behind the scene. Does that make you like the show more or less? That's how I just spun this so that it's not a mistake. It was on purpose. Yeah, that's good. So, folks, hey, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. Head over to Weaver's Department Store and check out things over there. You want to check out Randy's book, his Mayberry Firsts. And as long as you're looking at stuff, why don't you pick up a JL327 Mayberry squad car tag. It's actually a metal tag. It's a really cool tag. You can head over to Weaver's Department Store and check that out. So I'd appreciate that. Folks, thanks again for being here with me. I'd love to hear from you. Give me a call at 888-684-8415. Love to hear from you. And leave a voicemail. Otherwise, I have to read the messages like I did tonight. But I'd love to hear from you however you can. You guys have a great Mayberry week, and we'll see you back here on Two Chairs next week. Have a great week, everybody.